Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Well, happy Friday, friends, and welcome to a very special episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. And today is an amazing day in the history of the United States of America because Roe versus Wade has ended. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, but this is the remarkable accomplishment of God's work in our great country. And we have President Donald Trump to thank for appointing 3 justices to add to the court's majority that recognized that our rights are given by God, our creator, not our government. And it is the sole purpose of government to preserve and protect those rights. And so with the overturning of Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey today, I called President Trump immediately after I saw this opinion handed down by the court and simply said thank you. And I was in tears telling him that this is the greatest moment of his legacy of his first term. And it was a wonderful few-minute conversation with him. And I am so grateful to have been a part of his administration in advocating for the appointment of these 3 justices that he stuck by and he chose. And he was not willing to succumb to the immense pressure from the left to say, okay, forget it. I am going to withdraw the nominations, particularly of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. We all remember in 2018 what a fight that was. And President Trump, I think, was the only man in America that would have stood firmly by and not allowed the radical, insane left to try to disregard that nomination and that appointment. And so today, for everyone who has been a never Trumper or who questioned Donald Trump's candidacy in the very beginning, myself included, I questioned that. I initially supported a different candidate, but once I heard Donald Trump speak in 2016, I became an ardent supporter of his. I later had the privilege and opportunity to work for him directly. And for this administration, I hope that everyone can see that if God can use Donald Trump to reverse and overrule Roe versus Wade and to protect life in America, then he can use anyone for his purposes. And this is an amazing day. So the key takeaway points from this opinion, and I'm going to have on soon Abby Johnson, who, as you all know, has been an ardent pro-life advocate. She was a former Planned Parenthood director who then saw the gruesome truth about abortion and turned her life around, has given her life to Christ, and has been such a wonderful advocate for pro-life. So she's going to be on in a few minutes to talk about this fight on the state level and how pro-life advocates can continue to promote and defend life on the state level. Really excited to have her on. But from the legal perspective, I want to dispel a couple of myths. The first one: hey, Democrats, there is no such thing as super precedent. Maxine Waters, AOC, a few of the Democrats have come out today just saying, well, you know what? We're going to disregard this opinion. Well, 5 minutes ago, these were the very same Democrats who said this is super precedent. This is something that the court has a long-standing 50-year history of Roe versus Wade, and so super precedent has to be respected. The opinions of the court have to be respected. And then as soon as they get an opinion that actually fulfills and respects the U.S. Constitution and the rule of law, they're suddenly saying we want to disregard the Article 3 institution that the Constitution originates as the third branch of government to be the non-political branch and to enforce the rule of law in this country. So there is no such thing as super precedent. There is only the rule of law, and our supreme law of the land is the United States Constitution. Second myth: the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. I have long said this, including in my book that came out in 2015, The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution. There is no right to abortion. And the leftists continue to say that. You've seen headlines today saying that the Supreme Court conservative majority has ended or eradicated a right to abortion. That is false. That is misinformation. What the Supreme Court did today is recognized the Supreme Court does not confer a right to abortion. In fact, it doesn't confer any rights. It simply recognizes some particular enumerated rights, like, hey, the right to keep and bear arms that we talked about this week with the decision yesterday. But the Constitution does not grant us rights. It simply acknowledges the truth and the mandate of the Declaration of Independence that our rights come from God, our Creator, not our government. And so the Supreme Court today rightly returned this issue to the states so that the states can regulate abortion and protect the right to life how they see fit under their state constitutions and with the state authority. So the Supreme Court here rightly recognized a lie that Roe versus Wade and later Planned Parenthood versus Casey that was false in their inception of these cases. There is no such thing as a right to abortion in the Constitution. And the third myth that I want to dispel is that this means now suddenly that somehow all of our rights are in jeopardy because the Supreme Court can just go and eradicate these types of rights. Well, no, the Supreme Court rightly recognized that some issues, including the issue of regulation of abortion, should rightly be on the state level. And that's what I want to talk to Abby Johnson about, is how we as pro-life and conservative and Christian advocates can now have and best achieve this battle and win on the state level. But what does this mean for other so-called rights that the left has tried to bully through judicial activism on the bench, like, say, for example, the so-called right to same-sex marriage? Justice Thomas, in his concurrence today, talked about that very issue and actually acknowledged and proposed that the court needs to revisit some of those other egregiously wrongly decided cases, like Obergefell versus Hodges, that came down in June of 2015, that acknowledged wrongfully a so-called right to same-sex marriage. 30 plus states prior to 2015 had constitutional amendments to their state constitution saying that it was the decision of that state to recognize marriage properly as only between one man and one woman. So the Supreme Court should revisit that wrongly decided opinion and look at, and if you haven't read it, go read the dissent by none other than Chief Justice Roberts in that case, that said that regardless of your position on same-sex marriage, the Constitution of the United States does not grant regulating authority to the federal government to coerce and compel the states that they have to recognize same-sex marriage. those 30 states that have constitutional amendments only recognizing marriage as between one man and one woman were duly ratified and were recognizing the state's authority to regulate marriage insofar as the state can decline to recognize same sex marriage. And so think about that for a second. We never get a federal marriage license. No, you go to your state and local county because it is the state that authorizes a recognition of marriage, which truly marriage is recognized in the church, and it's the church that has the last say. But historically, the states have provided unique benefits and privileges for marriage. And that is okay. That is the province of the state if they choose. And so, with this opinion today, the left is not only panicking about federalism, the idea that states have the power and authority to regulate on issues not specifically expressly given to our federal government. But now they're wondering, will this conservative majority actually continue to reverse wrongly decided opinions that were an overreach of federal power? And no matter what you think on the issue of same sex marriage or abortion or these very highly charged political issues and debates, we all as a country rightly need to recognize the limited power that the Constitution provides to the federal government. There are no social issues in Article 1, Section 8 that are given to Congress to legislate on, including healthcare, including education, including so many other things, but certainly not marriage and certainly not abortion. Article 1, Section 1 of the United States Constitution says all legislative authority is given to Congress. And Article 1, Section 8 specifically provides what legislative powers are given on what particular subject matter. If that particular subject matter, like abortion, is not given to Congress in Article 1, Section 8, they cannot legislate on it. And that means that the United States Supreme Court does not have authority to determine for the entire country what regulation positions each state has to have on these issues. It's the same thing, and I've always compared it to, for example, the issue of capital punishment. We have a variety of opinions in the state whether or not the state wants to, through legislative statutory authority on the state level, impose a regulation either allowing or disallowing capital punishment on the state level. That is a state issue. It is not for the Supreme Court of the United States or for Congress to impose on the states how they have to regulate criminal law within that respect. And it's the same thing for abortion. It's the same thing for healthcare. It's the same thing for education issues. It's the same thing for same-sex marriage. Now, the left wants to weaponize the federal government, and they want to arbitrarily appoint the federal government to be the arbiter and the petty tyrant to impose their control and their will on these issues, because they know that it's far easier to get a Supreme Court leftist majority that has controlled the court for the last 60 years until President Donald Trump than it is to win each and every state on these legislative questions. It's much more difficult, and it's a lot more difficult for conservatives as well. But we have never, as conservatives, advocated for a conservative activist majority on the Supreme Court. And the reason for that is because we know that we are principled and that the United States Constitution has a separation of powers, not only within the three branches of federal government, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary, but there is also a separation of powers on the vertical level between the federal government, the state government, and we the people. And all powers not expressly reserved to the federal government, according to the 9th and 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, are reserved to the states or to the people. So as we are praising the Supreme Court for this opinion today, remember, it is not because we are pro-life advocates only. It is because the Supreme Court rightly recognized the principles of limited power of the federal government and rightly returned this issue to the states so that the states can determine through their elected representatives how to regulate the issue of abortion. And I hope that this case in light of what Justice Alito wrote for the majority and what Justice Thomas wrote in his concurrence, that we will see a long line of precedent from this Supreme Court that will continue to strip away arbitrarily given power to the federal government and return it where the Constitution requires it to be, on the state and local level. So thank you, President Trump, for appointing 3 justices that were added to the amazing, wonderful justices Alito and Thomas to give us a Supreme Court that is actually willing to recognize the limited powers of the federal government and return America to being great through our supreme law of the land, the United States Constitution. This is a great day for all Americans because it shows that we are a nation of rules, not a nation of rulers. So we'll be right back with my good friend Abby Johnson to talk about this issue and how we as pro-life advocates can fight on the state level. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. So joining me now is my good friend Abby Johnson. And Abby, you have been such a wonderful pro-life advocate. And first, I just want to get your response to this amazing opinion today. It's a wonderful day, and I'm just so excited to get to talk with you today.
It is a beautiful day, and we are all just so excited. I mean, the pro-life movement has been fighting for this, fighting for Roe to be overturned for now almost 50 years. But, I do have to say that, the battle is not over, really. We've just sort of made it more difficult on ourselves because we've gone from fighting really one battle at the federal level to now 50 state battles. And so I want to caution people of feeling like, oh, great. Well, I live in a state where there's a trigger ban, or I live in a state where there's a constitutional amendment to ban abortion. So, our battle's over now, abortion's ended. No, our fight is really just beginning at the state level. And so we need to double down on our efforts to change hearts and minds, to make sure that abortion stays illegal in the states that are red, in the states where abortion is currently going to be illegal. We need to fight hard in the blue states to change hearts and minds on the issue of abortion. And then there are going to be a handful of states where, there's sort of been some compromise, or there's a heartbeat bill. In Florida, there's a 15-week ban. We need to work to protect every life in those states.
Absolutely. And you're talking about trigger laws, which Ken Paxton and also the AG of Missouri and a few other states have now issued their advisory opinions talking about those trigger laws, that as soon as the judgment is handed down in about a month, because this was the opinion today, and so the judgment will actually be handed down in roughly a month, that will then be the day that starts that triggering effect, and those laws will be in effect. But you're right. I mean, this is something that, as we've learned today, there is no such thing as super precedent. If you get bad legislators into the state level, you get a bad governor, you get bad judges, then this can be eroded on the state level, or even overturn some of these other trigger bans. And so you also mentioned the heartbeat bills, that those are great, but they don't go far enough, because we know from the science that life begins at conception, and that we need to protect life from conception all the way till natural death. So what are some basic principles and some takeaway points of practical action that people can do now in their states to continue to protect life?
So, just because we've had this ruling from the Supreme Court, it doesn't mean that crisis pregnancies are going to go away, right? So, crisis pregnancies are still going to exist. And, we as pro lifers, we as Christians, we need to be there to stand in the gap to say we're willing to support you. We as the church need to be there to say we're willing to support you, we're willing to accompany you on this journey, you and your preborn child. And so now's the time for us to do that. We need to partner with our local pregnancy centers. If you don't even know where your local pregnancy center is, go figure it out. I know that there's one probably close to you. So go figure that out. Go take a tour. Go find out what their services are, what they offer to women in your community. Post about your local pregnancy center on your social media. Let other people know that there is a pregnancy center in your area. We need to support them financially. We need to support them with volunteerism, with our time, with donations of baby items, items for moms, maternity clothes, whatever it is. So now is the time for us to really step up and to say, okay, how am I going to support women? Because crisis pregnancies are going to continue to exist. There is going to be now an underground network of women, women and men taking other women to go get abortions in other states. Other states like California, Gavin Newsom has already said we want California to be a sanctuary state for abortion. He's already allocated $125 million of state taxpayer funds to promote abortion tourism in his state. So there's still going to be women who are looking for that abortion sort of way out. And so we still have a lot of work that needs to be done, changing hearts and minds, transforming women's hearts on this issue of abortion. And, a lot of times people say culture is downstream from politics. Sometimes it's vice versa. And so, there's a lot of education that needs to be done, but a lot of that is God working through us. And so we have to be the mouthpiece for life in our own communities, in our families, and in our states.
Yeah, so well said. And the church really does need to step up now and take care of these crisis pregnancies and these women who are looking for options. And if it's only the Planned Parenthoods of the world that say, "Hey, we're going to give you a free option, and this is a way out," it should be the church that is supporting and surrounding these women and encouraging them to look at their child as a beautiful gift from the Lord, and to encourage, whether it's to have the financial resources to raise that child for themselves or to choose adoption. My little brother is adopted, and thankfully, his mother chose life when she in that time did not have to. And I am so grateful and thankful for the gift of adoption, because my little brother, God meant for him to be in our family. And even though he came into the world in a different circumstance than having my parents be his biological parents, I firmly believe that God always intended his life to be with our family. And adoption is a beautiful, beautiful picture of how God adopts us into his family. And so, legislatively speaking, are there things that we can also do on the state level and encourage legislators to make domestic adoption even more easy and smooth, so that that can be an even more viable alternative for women?
There are, and one of the other things that I would really like to see is, of course, people talk about foster care reform. I would love to see more and more Christian families adopting from the foster care system, or even becoming foster parents. There are so many kiddos in the foster care system that need a forever family, and a lot of them are older children, but they still desire to have a family. They still desire to have a mother and father. And so I would love to see more Christian families looking at that route to, taking children into their home, maybe older children. It does take a special calling to do that. It's not for everybody, but that is something I would love to see Christian parents really praying about. Of course, there are reforms that we can look at in the foster care system, in the adoption system. I would also really like to see some model legislation written to maybe allocate state funds, particularly in these red states where abortion is going to be illegal. I'd love to see model legislation written up to help advertise, just like Planned Parenthood has received advertising dollars to advertise their services. And everybody knows what Planned Parenthood is. Everybody knows what their local Planned Parenthood is. I would love to see some advertising dollars allocated to let people know that there are pregnancy resource centers in their communities. Give them some digital advertising dollars, give them some billboard dollars, let people know where the maternity homes are in their communities. I'd love to see some model legislation written up for advertising money for these life-saving facilities that are already in their community. People just don't know about all the great services and resources that are already there.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. And there are so many different ways that we can engage our legislators now, especially on the state and local level, is where the battle lines are being fought now. And, Abby, just in the last few minutes that I have with you as well, I know that you have a great ministry that you have personally, and your organization has supported so many women who are choosing life and who need some resources. And so, talk about that as well, and how all of the people who are listening here can also get engaged with your ministry and make a difference.
Yeah, so we have a helpline called Loveline. People can find out more at loveline.com. It's a 24-hour hotline. People can call, they can text, they can email. And we help anyone who's in crisis. So if it's a crisis pregnancy, if it's a single mom who's got some kiddos and she's struggling, single dads, we've gotten some calls recently from single dads who need some assistance. So it's really anybody who's in crisis that just needs a helping hand. We are there to help. Of course, we do receive calls mostly from women who are in crisis pregnancies, and we're always happy to help. And we just try to we case manage with them, and so we try to help with transportation, housing, healthcare, food, anything that they possibly need. We're in their lives for the long haul. We have professional counselors, Christian counselors that are on board and try to get to some root issues with them, figure out what's going on in their lives. So loveline.com, have the information handy. You never know when you're going to encounter somebody who says, I'm really struggling with my kids. I really need some help. And you can pass on the information to them. We also have a ministry called And Then There Were None that helps get abortion clinic workers out of their industries and out of their clinics and into hope and healing with Jesus Christ. We've helped over 620 workers do just that. And I have a feeling that we're going to be inundated with some more workers as these clinics start to close.
Yeah, and that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you continue to do, Abby. And I know this is not just a legal fight. I mean, the legal should simply reflect the truth of morality and the truth that every human being, no matter how small, is a human being made in the image of God and has inherent dignity and worth. But this is not just a legal or even just a moral victory today. This is truly something that now we need to take very seriously as Christians and say we are being called upon in our communities, in our churches, in our areas to truly support life. And I know so many people do. It's a leftist talking point to say you're only pro-birth and you don't care about what happens after that. That is so not true. That is the furthest thing from the truth. And there are ministries like yours and organizations around the country that support women, support children, and this is just so incredibly important that we have prayed for this moment. Since I've been alive, I can't believe that Roe versus Wade is actually overturned. That happened even before I was alive, and so we've been praying for this for so long. And now, when God has given us the fulfillment of that prayer, it's now our responsibility to continue to step up and continue to support life at every stage and through all of these great ministries. So thank you so much for your time today. And I hope that everyone goes to loveline.com and supports these ministries also. And Then There Were None, Live Action with Lila Rose. I mean, so many great organizations across the country, and go find out about your crisis pregnancy center that is in your local community. Volunteer, do everything that you can to help. So Abby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, of course, Jenna.
I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast, and that, of course, is my good friend Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99, but you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great discounts, but use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna.